Welcome to the Integrate Yourself Podcast with Allison and Maya. You're listening to episode 2. You can find out more about what I do at pureenergypdx.com and more about what Maya does at mayagottlieb.com. Welcome to Integrate Yourself with Allison and Maya. Today we're going to talk about how to make anger your friend. And on the other end of the spectrum, how victimhood can be paralyzing. So you have anger on one end, which is sometimes expressed healthy, sometimes not. Maya and I discuss how anger needs to be expressed, but we don't want to stay in the anger state. So how to identify where the anger is coming from, maybe how to go about transforming that energy into something that's more empowering. And I think that's really, I thought about this a lot lately just because of everything that's going on in the world. I'm actually seeing people that are really angry because of the president in the United States. I don't know, I can only speak for what's going on here. And I think there's a lot of frustration, and people are feeling a little out of control, and so they're getting angry about it. They're blaming others. Some of them are becoming victims. So I felt like is a really important topic to discuss today, and I'd like to really help people by giving people ideas on how you can actually get yourself out of that hole of either being really stressed out and angry or blaming others for the state that you're in, and just and getting into the passive aggressive thing and all of that. So how do we express ourselves in a healthy way? And I think that's more about awareness, mindfulness around what's going on within you, and then choosing to take that energy and that information and make it something that's giving you more, I guess, choice and more options about how you can use it. Are you going to use it to help yourself? Most likely, yes. If you know what's going on, most people will transform that energy into something really good. But if we stay stuck in that anger mode, then we'll never really be able to see it from that other's perspective. A lot of times I've found too that there's things that you perceive that other people may not have even meant, or their intention wasn't what you thought it was, or it wasn't even personal, but we take it personally. And so therefore, you get triggered. It's what we call getting triggered. So when you get triggered, for me anyway, it's more about, okay, instead of blaming that other person for pissing you off, I would say it's more about why are you getting triggered? What is happening there? Why did, that is something that, to me, I guess it's something that needs to be brought up within you. It just needs to be, there's something within you that needs some attention. So that's the way I like to look at it, and hopefully that's helpful to you too. So Maya has done a great job in this podcast in expressing this process in a really articulate way that is easy to understand and follow. So I really am so happy to be sharing this, and I apologize in advance for all the background noise and distractions that have happened on my end. I actually had some technical difficulties and a lot going on in my house that day for whatever reason. So please bear with me on that end. But with that being said, as imperfect as it is, it's kind of perfect because there's some really, really fantastic information on there. And I think Maya, again, I'll say she expresses it so well. So sit back, enjoy, and take it all in. One thing I'll say before I go on to the podcast is Maya and I are both holistic health and life coaches. I specialize in more of personal training, holistic personal training, and nutrition and lifestyle coaching. And she helps people with, as an LMT, a licensed massage therapist, and a holistic life and nutrition coach. So we both have very similar backgrounds, and that's why we came together to share this podcast, so we can share the information that we've both shared together out into the world. So thank you so much for listening. Okay, so Maya and I are here today, and we're going to be talking about victimhood. And there's a lot of that going on in the world right now. I'm noticing a lot of anger, a lot of anxiety, a lot of people feeling blaming others for what's going on, which is, I totally get that. I totally understand. I've done it many times myself. I think it's okay to be in that for a second, but then there's a process of getting yourself out of that victimhood and empowering yourself. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, get a little deeper into that subject. And with that, I'm going to introduce Maya into the mix. And what do you have to say about that, Maya? What do you want to start that off with? How do you want to start that discussion, I guess?
For me, I think what I heard you say was how we make anger our friend, and in terms of the things that describe anger and is a projection of an emotion. So we're usually never really angry about what we're angry about. We're never really upset about what we think we're upset about. There's something underneath it, and if we can back up and see the emotional part of what's causing the anger. So if you have a moment where you can say, okay, I'm in this anger, and then kind of watch yourself and say, okay, what am I really angry about? And then from there, you can then find like a way out of the reactive behavior and become more responsive to what your needs are. So if we say you have misdirected anger and your expression is fear and shame behind that because something else that you didn't really connect the dots to, the thing is you'll start to want to keep going on in the anger, and it gets you lost in some kind of version of a story, but it's not going to then help you a way to release and figure out, wait, what am I really angry about? So, I think it also reveals a lot of the behavior if you're going to create. So fight, flight, freeze, and facade are the responses of any kind of action of some kind of thing that's happened to you, or you feel as an external thing that came to you and said, hey, you did this to me and it's your fault, and then you kind of lose control for that moment of time because you're feeling that fear and shame, but you don't really know what you're really angry about. So I think that's a good place to start from there. What do you?
Yeah, I agree. That's great. Yeah, so just identifying where the anger is coming from, what the trigger is all about. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I mean, anger is natural, but it's also how long and how often do you want to stay in there. So if you get angry and then you can walk away for whatever that was, great, because you don't want to suppress the anger. You want to be able to get connected to it and not get lost within it.
Yes, I totally agree. I think that is excellent advice. And it's worked, well for me in my life as well. That's a great point that you made with the anger, is not hanging on to it or stuffing it down, and actually bringing it out, which is very healthy, but not staying in that anger, just transforming that energy into something else, and something that can be healing for you, because most likely if it's coming out in an angry way, it's probably been there for a little while, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about someone who's incredibly angry, right? Their energy is exploded, and they're loud and they're reactive, and they're making themselves quite like bigger than they may be in their natural state. So they're really, causing an intimidation, or they start interrogating, or they put themselves in a place where they're protecting themselves, but outwardly very aggressive. And then you can have like a passive behavior where you are angry, but then you're pathetic and hiding. So you get in the way of one spectrum or the other, right? So like I'm not going to tell you what I'm angry about, then I'm going to get into that what we call the victimization stage, where it's then that suppression. And so from what I understand, if you can't express your anger in a healthy way, then you inhale it in and take it in, and then become maybe sad or even depressed after that, because it's that inability of you to express the anger in a healthy way. And so you won't deal with it, you won't go there. You'll just say, I don't want to see myself become this expansive person that's probably out of control, perceived, because of this inability to contain myself. And so then the shame might come around and say, oh yes, don't do that. You are not allowed to show your anger. That's not, that's not proper. Or maybe even triggers you when you're a kid, when your parents shut you down and said, hey, I'm your parent, listen to me. And you had no recourse of saying, wait, my expression of anger is healthy, and it all has to do with a little bit of survival, right? Like your
Absolutely.
parents are trying to say, hey, I can't do with you right now. You don't hear that. You just hear them shutting you down. So your pattern keeps coming out where you're kind of telling yourself, oh, I better not show my anger. I better not show anger. And then you start to learn how to manipulate yourself and others in this kind of dance of passive aggressive, right? So kind of coming back to like, where are you putting yourself in? Are you angling yourself into a victimization stage so that you can allow yourself to feel the anger internally but not express it?
Yeah, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about the victimhood thing, because I feel like that is that's a slippery slope. I think there's so many people that fall into that, and they may not even realize they're doing that. And I think women sometimes fall into that really easily too, because we don't feel like we always have a voice, and so we go the passive aggressive route, or we blame, or we there's anxiety around that too, and getting irritated at people. And I think recognizing that you're doing that when you're getting really irritated all the time at other people, or you're blaming a lot of people for what's going on with you, then I think that's something to really stand back and look at and say, hey, wait a minute, that shouldn't be happening. Like, there's something else going on here, and it's maybe how I'm looking at the world instead of what other people are doing to me all the time. And so I think that can be very empowering as well, to realize that. Can you talk, Maya, a little bit more about the victimhood state, and how we could take steps to get out of that victimhood state, and how, or actually, you just talked about how to recognize it, but how could we develop strategies to just start getting out of that dark hole of passive aggressiveness?
I believe, like, for what I've learned is taking ownership of all your emotions. Like, if you really think about how often we categorize, these are good emotions, these are bad emotions. So we end up seeing ourselves in these spectrums of, this is the correct behavior, and this is not so correct behavior. And so then we may utilize that to help us develop even more of like a, being too sensitive to maybe a one-upmanship, or we might do a righteousness or sarcasm, or maybe even dumbing ourselves down. But then, that feeling of pressure, of feeling not so great about ourselves, we go into condescension, blaming self or others. And then, we never really can get to the aspect of, really owning that, yes, let me declare I'm angry, And what I would want to know for myself is how I've taught myself not to see my anger and not be able to say to myself, okay, it's okay for me to have that anger. It's absolutely an authentic place for me to be at this moment. Now, like what we were talking about is, when do you come to that place of saying, okay, I've maybe had that much time to be angry. Now I come through and I say, what am I doing with this anger? Like, am I even hearing half the story? Do I even see what my participation is in that anger? So we kind of slowly claim our power back. And then we kind of can then look at, did we fight fair or did we fight dirty? Did we come from a place of blaming, or did we come from a place of manipulation, so that, if I get angry, I know that you don't like it, so I'll do it more so that I can get my way. Or I can, trigger you without really knowing that, maybe parts of you had experienced when you were a kid. And so that ownership of, like, how did you play your part in that moment, kind of gives you that understanding of, hey, I'm going to reclaim what I'm giving away. I'm giving my energy out to you because I'm so angry. And so that person can actually take you for an even longer ride than you really wanted to. Or you can say, hey, I need everyone to know that I'm an angry person. Because that way I can feel comfortable in control. So basically, we're heading right into, how do you want to take responsibility for your emotions, and how do you want to take responsibility of those times that we're out of control and the perception of control.
What came to me when you said that is is totally about control. That came to my mind too. Like, being angry is a form of being in control, and blaming is also a form of being in control, because you don't really actually have to own your own actions, like you said. When it comes to other people, you don't have to look at why you got angry. It was that other person. That's what made you angry. It was them. Not had nothing to do with you, right? So I think that it's more about, like you said as well earlier. It's about responding instead of reacting. It's like, if you're reacting at everything and you can't control yourself, and you're actually harming yourself as well, because you're getting the stress hormones going, and every time you do that, and it's not a healthy thing to do. It's not a thing also people want to be around a lot. So but I kind of feel like, with everything that's going on in the world right now, there's a lot of anger going on, and the main reason I wanted to talk about this is partly because of that, and to give people a different perspective on how they could look at maybe they're getting angry because they don't feel like they have any control in the world right now. Things are happening in the world that are out of their hands, and that may be true. But the truth is that you can actually gain control in your own life by looking at it from our perspective. I think it's very helpful. So if you can look at the things that could be, this can also work with relationships. Of course, if you're in an intimate relationship with someone is going to trigger you all the time, right? It doesn't matter how great your relationship is, you're still going to get triggered by them. But you can also use this for the world. So, like, with politics and those kind of things. So if something's triggering you politically, or you can look at that and say, well, why is that triggering me? Why am I getting angry about that? Is there something going on a deeper level with me? that, is that the reason that's happening? And can I change this? How can I change this? How can I change my mindset? How can I look at this differently? So I think that's the first step for sure.
Well, I mean, if we want to give stages of how to do it, I mean, once you get a awareness of the body, like, when you're mad, you can feel your body excitatorily going, like, your temperature is rising, your voice is louder than you may be, arms may be moving around or whatever's however you do an anger, and you feel that tension. And if you're doing it where you're not showing your anger, then you can kind of feel it in your body even too, because there's tension, like neck pain, or there's back pain, or there's even deeper layers of, like, if you're, having liver issues or some kind of kidney, or, you can look into Chinese medicine and they'll tell you every organ is connected to an emotion. So if we look at, just taking a breath, it's calming our breath down, allowing ourselves to talk in a more softer voice, and you'll start to calm that inner anger. And then, without like suppressing it into, let's just shut it down, not hear ourselves, then you can start asking the questions like, what does this mean to me? What does this person represent in my life? What is it that what is my outcome? What is it I really want to convey, but not being able to get to because I'm feeling some kind of shame, or I feel that, I cannot honor something that I might have misperceived. And, I think those are stages that we can start to say to ourselves are like baby steps to reclaiming what we want to do in terms of our responsibility of how we perceive ourselves and our perception of others.
I'll add to that, intuition, using intuition or intuitive, like, start to practice intuitive practices, I guess is how I say that. As you develop that in yourself, and you start, I wanted to actually touch on this because I heard you say this a while back, and it just was like, yeah, like taking ownership, and not just going with a plan or strategy that people tell you to do, or that you feel like you have to do because everybody else is doing it. Actually developing your own voice within yourself can be really powerful, at helping with this, and getting out of the victimhood state, especially. And even, any kind of irritation like that, it really, I think irritation stems from just being irritated with yourself for not actually, taking ownership of stuff in some form or another, or not giving yourself the time and space to that you need. And so I think a great way to do that, like you said, like, look towards your body, see how your body's responding to decisions that you're making. If you're saying yes to things that you really don't want to be doing, then what is your body doing? Is it curling up? Or is it actually just straightening up, and you feel powerful when you make this decision? There's a couple. I mean, it's very subtle, but it works, and your body language is like so powerful. It'll tell you right away, if what you're doing is the right thing, and especially if you're connected to that. So. I think that's another great way to start developing your intuition if you're in tune with your body, especially. But there's other ways too, and everybody picks up on that kind of information differently. But I think for health reasons, I think being able to be in tune with your body is super important.
Right, and that's probably where we would probably want to go into of what do you what do you know about yourself? Like, like, do you even have an awareness of, what your body tells you on a daily notion? Like, okay, I wake up in the morning. Do I feel I'm connected to the ground when I'm up in the morning? Do I wake up and I'm just already in my head about all the things I need to do? Am I walking into, just another day of the same thing and I don't, get a moment of a breath or a moment of a pause? And taking pauses can be like simple, like, as taking like a couple of breaths or sitting still for just a second and connecting to yourself. And what that will do is allow your centering to come to, and then, calming the voices in your head. And now, if we go into a physical, like physically, you're, dealing with a lot of low energy. You don't know the difference between, have you eaten enough in the day for your body and how your body is responding to the food that you're taking. These are other steps that, we both can help individuals do with a little bit of just simple taking your temperature and pulse, knowing how you're going to work your day in chunks that you can say to yourself, oh, yeah, I know today, I didn't eat so well in the morning, so I know why I didn't have enough energy at night, and so maybe I slept a little off, and then I wake up in the morning and I'm okay, but I'm just not that person that I like to feel. And one of the things I noticed in intuition is intuition has a lot to do with, connection to oneself. And so the more you work on that intuition in terms of like taking a moment, taking a pause in your day, and then maybe, really checking in on yourself, you really can create a connection that, doesn't bring self-doubt or doesn't allow you to say, well, was that really right? Is my intuition working? And I say from my own personal experience, you go through waves, right? And I noticed those waves of, oh, if I had connected the dots, I wasn't in a very good space that day, and no wonder I was a little distracted, or I didn't feel my intuition was playing, you know, clear enough for me. So I would say for others that are really trying to set into what it means, intuition, I think you really first can go into how do you feel in your body.
Yes, definitely. And I think that just actually feeling that first is huge. It's a huge first thing to do. I think that's the first step. Um, but yeah, you touched on some really, really, really wonderful points. And I think those can be actually, we can lead into for next time the physiology of the body and how that responds to certain stresses you're putting on it. And I'd like to get into that deeper on the next one. But but yeah, I mean, so much in your body can be controlled by your breath, by just taking space for yourself. One thing I like to do is go for a long walk out in a place where I can have access to nature is preferable, but it doesn't have to be that way. And then going out for a walk, and actually the walking without any kind of distraction, no headphones, no, no podcast, nothing like that, and just being able to process, having that processing time while I'm walking is like has helped me so much. It's almost like my moving meditation. It's like my moving meditation. I'm just walking. I'm out in nature. I don't have any distractions. And it helps me with things that I've been trying to process during the day or think through, or decisions I've been trying to make. It actually gives me more clarity. So just giving yourself that space is a big deal.
Absolutely.
So I think we're gonna wrap it up. Thanks, Maya, for doing this with me again. And next time we will talk more about the physiology of the body. We're gonna get into a little bit more of the hormone balancing aspect of that.
Well, it was great talking with you again, and we'll see you the next time.
Okay, thanks, Maya. Talk to you
All right.
soon. Bye.
Bye.
So if you liked what you heard, please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. and share it with your friends. Thanks again for listening. Tune in to us next month when we talk about hormonal balancing, how that affects your physiology, your body physiology, as well as your emotional state. And also, we'll be talking a lot about, actually, I want to talk about estrogen and how that is a stimulant. And it's very interesting. We rarely think of estrogen this way, but it actually has a huge effect on our body's physiology and the way we respond emotionally, how it can affect your response to certain situations in life, how you handle stress, as well as how it affects your health overall over time. So, we'll be talking about that, and it'll be pretty interesting, and I hope you tune in. Until then, be well.